So we hear constantly about what AI can do, right? But have you ever stopped to really think about how it thinks? Because it turns out the core logic driving our most advanced tech is on a collision course with a really ancient philosophy, one that warns against the very thing AI promises: total control. It's a fascinating clash of ideas. So let's dive in. This quote from Mark Zuckerberg, man, it gets right to the heart of it. This is the central belief system of so much modern tech, this idea that human life, with all of its chaos and messiness, can just be boiled down to a math problem, one that's just waiting for the right algorithm to come along and solve it.
And that belief, well, that's the foundation for AI's grand promise. The sales pitch is pretty simple: a world that can be perfectly known, accurately predicted, and ultimately completely controlled, all through the power of data.
And the engine driving this whole thing is the algorithm. At its core, it's just a set of rules. Think of it like a recipe, designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to optimize for a goal. And it does this by just churning through mountains of data, what we call big data, hunting for patterns that let it guess what's going to happen next.
Okay, and this is where you see a huge difference in how AI thinks compared to us. We, as humans, we look for cause and effect. But an AI, like the one Netflix uses, it doesn't know that you like historical romances. It has no clue. It just knows that a whole bunch of people who watched movie X also happened to watch movie Y. It's pure pattern matching. It's all correlation, with zero, and I mean zero, understanding of causation.
And Jeff Bezos here, he takes that worldview and just cranks it up to 11. It's this deep, almost religious faith that for any problem you can think of, math holds the one single true answer. This belief, this relentless hunt for certainty, is really what fuels the entire algorithmic age.
But here's the thing. What if that mathematical certainty isn't as clean and objective as it seems? It turns out this whole quest for a single right answer can have some really serious and very human flaws baked right into the code.
And this is where it gets really tricky. You see, algorithms don't just passively predict the future, they can actually start to shape it. They can create these self-fulfilling prophecies where the very act of predicting something actually makes it happen.
Predictive policing is a perfect and kind of scary example of this in action. Look at this loop. An algorithm gets fed historical crime data, and it flags a certain neighborhood as high risk. So what happens? More police get sent there. And because there are more police, guess what? They make more arrests. This new arrest data then gets fed back into the system, which then says, see, I was right all along. It becomes this dangerous feedback loop that uses objective-looking math to amplify and reinforce very real human biases.
As data scientist Kathy O'Neill puts it so perfectly, algorithms are fantastic at reflecting our past, warts and all. But they completely lack the one thing needed to create a better future: moral imagination. That's on us.
Okay, so if the algorithmic dream of total control is flawed, what's the alternative? Well, to find a radically different perspective, we have to look far away from Silicon Valley, to an ancient Chinese philosophy, Daoism.
So, at the very heart of Daoism is this idea of the Tao, which is often translated as the way. Think of it as the natural, spontaneous, mysterious flow of the universe. And here's the key difference. Unlike a math problem, the Tao is fundamentally unknowable. It's not something to be solved or controlled, but something you experience and adapt to.
There's this amazing line from the classic Daoist text, the Laozi, that starts with this observation. Just think about that for a second. When everyone agrees on what is beautiful,
then there's already the ugly. Wow, the very act of creating a rigid box, of drawing a hard line and saying this is beautiful, well, in that same breath, you automatically create its opposite. By defining one thing so strictly, you exclude everything else, and you kind of make the world smaller.
And the Daoists took this idea even further. They argued that these strict moral codes we create, they aren't signs of a healthy society. They're actually symptoms that something's already broken. You only need to lecture people about filial piety when family harmony is already gone. You only praise loyal servants when the government is already in chaos. These virtues are just patches. They're not the ideal.
this whole tension, this clash between calculated efficiency and a more natural way of being, is captured perfectly in a simple little story from another Daoist text, the Zhuangzi.
So the story is about this old gardener. He's working hard, watering his garden the old-fashioned way, just lugging these heavy buckets of water from a well, one by one.
It's inefficient, sure, but it's very direct. So a visitor sees him toiling away and suggests he use a simple machine, a lever, that would make the work totally effortless. He could be so much more productive. But the gardener refuses, and his reason is just profound. He's not afraid of the technology itself, he's afraid of what using it will do to him. He's afraid it will give him a mechanistic heart, and he'll start to see the entire world only in terms of calculation and efficiency.
And that brings us to the central question of the whole thing, doesn't it? I mean, the machine definitely saves his back, there is no doubt about that. But what does it do to his heart? What do we lose when absolutely everything is seen through the lens of pure efficiency?
So what can this ancient wisdom actually teach us about our future with AI? How do we even begin to reconcile these two completely opposite ways of looking at the world?
When you put them side by side like this, the divide is it's stark. The AI approach sees the world as a math problem that needs to be solved. The goal is control, and it values certainty above all else. The Daoist ethos sees the world as a mystery to be experienced. The goal is flow and adaptation, and it values nuance and even ambiguity. This isn't just about tech. It's about our fundamental attitude towards life itself.
Now, to be super clear, this is not an argument to abandon technology. The gardener's wisdom isn't telling us all to go back to carrying buckets. The real lesson here is that we have to be incredibly thoughtful about where this mechanistic, optimizing worldview belongs, and, maybe more importantly, where it absolutely doesn't.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We spend so much time and energy worrying about how to align AI with our values. But what if the bigger, more subtle danger is that in our rush to adopt all these tools, we slowly, quietly begin to align ourselves with their values, with a world that prioritizes pure optimization, prediction, and control? What happens to the human heart then?